Over the past couple of weeks, we've looked towards upcoming releases and the iconic characters fronting them, and this week is going to be no exception. Resident Evil 3 Remake is one of the most hyped game releases of the year, proving yet again that remakes of classics seem to be some of the biggest heavy hitters in the modern world. Over the years, the massively popular franchise has spawned so many games, spin-offs, movies, and other material that its key characters have been subjected to a multitude of changes in costume, art style, and just general quality of their representation. Jill Valentine is one of those characters, appearing since the franchise's conception and making a return in Remake 3, with a brand new amended character design, and I think she's a great first character to focus on from the series, as she really is synonymous with Resident Evil on the whole. She's definitely one of the first characters I think of when the series is mentioned. Introduced in the original Resident Evil as a member of the Special Tactics and Rescue Service, Jill fronts up operations alongside Chris Redfield. She was originally created by Capcom artist Isao Oishi to be a support character alongside two other character concepts. Eventually, she would become one of the lead playable characters alongside Chris, while the other characters would be removed. Oishi did not like realistic military style outfits, and the choice to make Jill's outfit blue would stick with her and her ever-changing wardrobe throughout her character's design development. Some of the looks are definitely more memorable than others, but it's really interesting to see just how much the character has changed since the mid-90s. As always, I'll look at the designs that stand out personally to me. If there are any that you think I have omitted, just let me know in the comments section and we can discuss those designs in a less exciting text format. I'm the artist Mark Flynn, and today let's find out which Jill Valentine design I think truly is best. At this time, if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, you'll be really helping me out towards my goal of 20,000 subscribers. Not far to go now. As already alluded to, Jill's first appearance came in the original Resident Evil, released in 1996. Perhaps one of the most important survival horror games of all time, it certainly has aged like a fine wine, if the fine wine was a piece of rotting flesh. Resident Evil 1 was an ambitious spectacle featuring 3D polygon graphics, tense gameplay, and even live-action FMV cutscenes. Some of this really did work. The gameplay, graphics, and atmosphere, most notably, were great for the time, but the more ambitious elements, i.e. the acting, only really paid off in legicizing the game as a meme.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life.
A Jill sandwich.
Apparently Inez, as she is quite aptly credited, was only in high school at the time of the game's production and was only used as she resembled the character she was cast as, much like the rest of the actors tied to the project. Given the performances, this would check out. Costume was pretty cool though. While these elements were silly and weak in comparison to the rest of the game, the actual character design for Jill herself is really top quality. Promotional artwork for the game paints her in her STARS uniform, which would go on to be one of her most famous looks. This included a pair of blue assault pants with a light blue form-fitting shirt, matching dark blue shoulder/neck armour. Finishing off the outfit was a beret accompanied by black boots and gloves. As for her physical appearance, she had middle-length brunette hair, was physically fit, and the anime nature of her artwork presented her as a friendly, colourful character. In addition to her STARS uniform, she also has a number of unlockable outfits, which differ between game versions and are featured across the game's Director's Cut and Sega Saturn ports. These include casual outfits such as jeans and black shirt, or a red shirt and jean shorts. There's also an alternative version of her original outfit and other more suitable zombie fighting police clothing. Strangely, the sexiest, if this is what you're into, unlockable outfit came much later, as Sexy Cop Jill appeared in the Nintendo DS port of the game in 2006. Wasn't really expecting that one as a Nintendo exclusive, to be completely honest. It's not hard to see why this original look is such a memorable appearance for Jill. The unique blue shade of her outfit stands out, and it's easily one of her nicest designs. Much like her co-star Chris, Jill would miss out on the second Resident Evil game, as 1998's sequel would instead focus on new characters Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield. The idea was that the survival horror wouldn't be as authentically terrifying with returning experienced characters, so the decision was made to start fresh. They definitely abandoned this idea in future entries, didn't they? Regardless of this, Jill returned to the series in 1999's Resident Evil 3 Nemesis as the solo protagonist. In a PlayStation era led by heroines such as Lara Croft, there was a definite decision to focus more on the female characters in the series at this time. Shinji Mikami, director of the original Resident Evil, oversaw development of both RE3 and the simultaneously developed Code Veronica. Both games would be led by a female character, with Jill leading one and Claire leading the other. This time around, Jill wore an outfit that was undeniably impractical for a zombie apocalypse and a massive change of pace from her original design. She wears a blue tube top and black miniskirt with a white sweater wrapped around her waist and brown long-length boots. The difference in outfit is also highlighted in a very different way outside of the somewhat similar looking blocky models, as Resident Evil had moved away from the anime style artwork and live action cutscenes in favour of pre-rendered graphics and FMV cutscenes. I think this was a great aesthetic change that really helped people take the franchise much more seriously, and Jill looks 100% more impressive as a result of it. The reference to Lara Croft I made earlier can't really be ignored, as there are definitely more similarities between the two here. Jill's sex appeal is amped up in this version of her design, and it's a notable difference between her original appearance. Across the game and later versions of it, she had a ton of unlockable outfits yet again. These included a STARS uniform, a police miniskirt, for those of you again that are into this stuff, a biker outfit, a disco outfit, a Dino Crisis outfit, and many more casual choices. Survival horror enthusiasts just love to see a woman fighting off mutant monstrosities in as many different looks as possible. My favourite thing about these additional costumes has to be the new render of her original Resident Evil look, which was a big clue as to where the franchise would head in a few years' time. In 2002, the original Resident Evil was remade for the Nintendo GameCube, and what a remake it was. This game pretty much set the bar for video game remakes, and I'd be pretty shocked if it wasn't the reason why people started to take a good serious look at remaking some of their older properties. This retelling was the most realistic looking Resident Evil game to date, and even by today's standards, it's impossible to not appreciate just how amazing of a step up this game was. The mood was on point, and the character models, lighting effects and environments were absolutely stunning. Originally intending to create an entirely new Black Ops style outfit for Jill, Kenichiro Yoshimura changed his tune during development. Definitely the right choice, I think. There are some new features added, such as a holster for her guns, but largely it is the same costume with the thickest coat of shiny paint. This is a very faithful design with the emphasis on the finer details. It's a much more realistic depiction of Jill Star's attire with a much higher level of graphic fidelity. It's not really shocking at this point, but alternate outfits were of course available this time around too. A new military outfit was included as an unlockable, which saw Jill take a much more combat orientated approach, inspired by Terminator 2's Sarah Connor. Much more notable though was the inclusion of her Resident Evil 3 outfit, which much like the other costume has been updated and realised with an aesthetic close to our own reality, while still retaining the charm of RE3's ridiculousness. It's presented in a more realistic fashion and does look much more practical than it did originally. This game really did encapsulate classic Jill at the highest quality, but it didn't give any indication of just how much her design was going to change in future titles. Resident Evil 5 was a huge departure to Jill's previous design, as the 2009 action game did the absolute unthinkable. They dyed her hair blonde. I mean, it was much more convoluted than that, obviously. This is a Resident Evil game we're talking about. RE5 introduces Jill as a non-playable character under the control of none other than antagonist Albert Wesker. His manipulation of the character is the basis of her new design this time around. Most notably, her hair has gone blonde and her skin is paler as a result of biological experimentation done to her body. She appears with her hair in a ponytail and in a blue skin-tight bodysuit. Basically, she was a top-tier Zero Suit Samus cosplayer. The look is topped off by the inclusion of the P30 injector, a red scarab-like device that is attached to her chest, leading to the control of her mind. Managing to shock protagonists Chris Redfield and Shiva Alamore on their journey with a new appearance and over-the-top action sequences, the character doesn't look or act like her previous versions in the slightest. This is certainly done for mystique and did add some shock factor, given the character had been missing for 2.5 story years prior, and it does achieve its impact in that regard. I couldn't believe this was Jill when I first saw how she looked. I do think it's a shame that we lost her iconic appearance, and while I don't hate the design, I can totally understand why others were critical of it. While it does make sense within the story, it does appear that they tried to heighten her sex appeal unnecessarily. DLC for the game, Lost in Nightmares, would add a prequel section to the main game, including more detail on how Jill was originally captured, whilst also adding her as a playable character. Her design reflected how she looked prior to experimentation, though it still doesn't much resemble her previous most detailed appearances. Jill wears a mixture of military clothing and sportswear, and we see that prior to her blonde hair, her hair was still very long, brunette and in a ponytail. She looks much more special ops than she did in her traditional Stars uniform, but the design doesn't really make me think of Jill Valentine at all at a first glance. Her face structure is quite different to how it has previously appeared. This outfit would also appear in the 2015 HD re-release of Resident Evil Remake, again as an unlockable costume. I personally find Jill's official render to look ever so slightly thinned out against her model. Moving into the next set of games, we'd get a bit of a look at the metamorphosis of the DLC's design into how she appeared in RE5. Enter Resident Evil Revelations, a series that launched on the 3DS to some much needed acclaim and would go on to spawn a sequel and HD ports of the original on mainline consoles. Revelations once again follows Jill and Chris as they try to stop a bioterrorist organisation from infecting the Earth's oceans with a virus. The underwater setting of the game is claustrophobic and eerie and plays into Jill's design this time around. Here, Jill wears a blue wetsuit, gotta keep the blue in there somewhere, has her hair tied back yet again, continues to use a headset like in RE5, and drops her gloves in favour of a multitude of holsters and belts that are placed around her arms, waist and legs. As far as costumes go, there's only one unlockable this time around, and it is Jill as a pirate. Not saying anything else about that one.
You are a pirate!
Jill would appear in the second game in 2015 with a design that was pretty much identical, though this would be limited to the game's raid mode only as she didn't factor into the game's plot itself. So, we've addressed a ton of the main Resident Evil games so far, but what about the other appearances? Well, much like Final Fantasy characters we've covered in the past, Jill has appeared in so many other pieces of media and spin-off games that it's really hard to keep track of. Here's a list of ones that I think are worth mentioning that do something interesting with either the choice of her outfit or the style a classic look is established in. First up, obviously there's a number of Resident Evil movies that included Jill. She was planned to be the series protagonist originally, but was cut from 2002's first film in favour of the inclusion of a new character, Alice. She would instead debut in 2004's sequel, Resident Evil Apocalypse, which loosely followed the events of Resident Evil 3. Portrayed by actress Sienna Galore, the costume was a definite nod to the games, with her RE3 outfit shown off in full glory. Funnily enough, producer Paul W.S. Anderson considered explanations to justify the usage of this costume, such as her being undercover, but ultimately decided nobody would care about this detail if they were here to watch a Resident Evil movie. The ending of the film and the subsequent sequels also nodded towards her look from Resident Evil 5, with the character's hair changing to blonde and the wearing of somewhat similar blue and purple bodysuits across both movies. The Scarab is here too. Regardless of whether you love or hate these films, I personally think they are average as hell, kind of like my YouTube channel. It's a relatively faithful representation of the character on a surface level and her design throughout the series. As for spin-offs, the list of appearances include Marvel vs Capcom 2. I've spoken before about how much I love the pixel art and style of the 2000 release fighting game. Jill is a playable character here with an outfit clearly based on her original game appearance. Building on the original artwork into a high quality anime style, it's a real treat to look at in gameplay, with fluid animations and pixel perfectness. Under the Skin, easily the oddest inclusion on the list, this comical sci-fi themed 2004 action-adventure game was a bit of a bizarre one, but featured a Raccoon City stage and cel-shaded appearances by both Nemesis and Jill, representing RE3 once more. Umbrella Chronicles, the 2007 on-rail shooter, looked at the established Resident Evil story through a new gameplay style. While this was another occasion to show off the classic looks of Jill in both RE1 and 3, it's also added a new section which saw her wear a pair of combat trousers and a hooded jacket. Jill would return to fighting games in 2011's Marvel vs Capcom 3 with a comic book inspired look at her Resident Evil 5 outfit. DLC would also add her costume from Resident Evil 3, though it didn't remove the P30 injector, making for a bit of an odd crossover of the two designs. 2011's Mercenaries 3D featured Jill's DLC outfit from RE5 with her tube top and skirt as an alternate costume. Similarly, 2012's Operation Raccoon City would feature an updated version of this outfit yet again, and in the same year Project X Zone would feature a pixel-based version of her design from Revelations with accompanying anime artwork. Finally, in 2013, Street Fighter X All Capcom, a card-based RPG, featured Jill's classic design in a chibi anime style. A 3D similar version of this was used in 2017's mobile puzzle fighter game, and it's a design that I find too disgustingly cute to comprehend. While not appearing in the games themselves, there's also been countless appearances of Jill's costume in other games such as Street Fighter, character worn by other characters. Let me know your favourites in the comments section, as there's no way I can list all of them. My monotone voice feels like it's going to go out at any moment. But now, for our main event. Obviously, we are just days away from the release of the Resident Evil 3 remake at this point. So what did this game do to her design? Did it improve upon what we remember from the original, and is it her best showing so far? Let's break it down. Using the gorgeous Resident Evil engine, which I've already sung the praises of in my Devil May Cry series of videos, this is hands down one of the best looking games in the Resident Evil series, and that reflects in the quality of Jill's model. Her default appearance has been altered significantly, and while the blue top remains, it's no longer a tube top with a white vest underneath. The skirt is gone, replaced by jeans, as well as switching to a more practical pair of boots, with an accompanying backpack and holsters for her guns and equipment. Overall, this Jill is far rougher around the edges, and despite having an official face model this time around, in the form of Russian model Sasha Zatova, her face is clearly less petite, and less like a pouting Victoria Beckham. Overall, I can really get behind the changes they've made here, with less limitations in power and graphic style, and this vision of the series being realistic as possible. An outfit that makes sense should really be prioritised if the series is going to be taken seriously. That's not to say that there's no love for the original though. This outfit does feature in the game too as a pre-order bonus, and it's definitely as faithful as can be whilst maintaining the remake's realistic approach to art design. She looks less like she's about to go clubbing and more like she's in her casual clothes, which is perfect for the unexpected outbreak that kicks off the game's story. It's great that there's a choice for fans of the original to go for if they aren't looking to change things up too much, though I hate the fact that it's in the form of DLC. All in all, Jill has had a lot of design since the first Resident Evil game debuted, and as we've seen, she has changed a lot across the development of the franchise. In my eyes, the character works best in a format that presents her seriously, and I'm quite disappointed by the turn her character took in Resident Evil 5. It feels like RE5 split her design into a completely new form, and I definitely much prefer what I saw in the original Resident Evil trilogy rather than what came later. I do have a fondness for her RE3 design. I love how impractical and silly it is, and I think it represents the time period perfectly, and especially the renders for the game are incredibly top notch. But I can't shake my love for the STARS uniform and the beret, and if I'm leaning towards this outfit, I'm definitely going for Resident Evil Remake's depiction of it as my best Jill Valentine design. Resident Evil Remake, as I've already mentioned, set the bar for remakes, and its strong graphic style made a seamless transition and re-release on HD consoles an easy decision for Capcom to make. This version of Jill is a perfect character for a survival horror game as far as I'm concerned. She's dressed for the occasion and her uniform represents that, but her beauty, size and facial expressions help present her vulnerably as and when the game requires it. She isn't over the top and she isn't overtly sexualized because she doesn't need to be. Resident Evil to me works best as a tense horror game, and this Jill fits in with this environment perfectly. She is one of the many set pieces that makes the remake such a big success. Resident Evil 3 certainly has big shoes to fill, and I'm a big fan of the design present there too. I can't wait to see more of that game as soon as I can. So that's it from me, but what did you think? Do you agree with me, or are there any other designs you prefer? Let me know in the comments section below. Alternatively, join my Discord server. We talk about games, TV, film, and even comment on each other's own work. At this time, I'd like to thank my patrons who help make videos like this possible, with a special shout out going to Yug Slade, Proggy Froggy, and Jacko. If you'd like your name in the credits, access to my exclusive Patreon podcast, or would just like to generally support the channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon.